Okay, guys, so I'm going to do this video to talk you through lesson two. Hopefully, most of you joined lesson one and have some good understanding of living space. And I will have explained to you during the live lesson for lesson one that this lesson was about writing an answer. Okay, so just try your best at it. If you don't feel confident in writing, analysing poetry, then we are going to go over that in a lot more detail when we're back at school together. But just try, just show me what you can do, all right? So you might want to pause this video between different activities because I'm going to use the whole video to talk you through the lesson. So on slide 12, you need to bug the poetry exam question. So you should be quite used to bugging the question now. So how is the space, how is the setting presented in the poem Living Space? So setting is one of the key themes in poetry, when the poems that we have to look at. So you need to bug that question. So box the command words, underline the keywords, and then go back and check that you've understood the focus while kind of planning an answer. There is an example of a bugged question if you click on that link if you want to look at it. You might want to pause now and bug your question. Okay, then on slide 13, we go over the structure of the answer. So you should include an overview where you try to sum up the poet's meaning, mood, and motivation in a few sentences. You don't need to include evidence there. You're just basically saying, what's the poem about? How is the topic being kind of addressed? And why has the poet written it? Motivation. If you can link that to context, that's a great way to start to show your contextual knowledge from the start there. So you go back to your annotated poem from lesson one, decide on a piece of language and one new to the structure that you want to write about. That's a really good thing to do before starting part two, which is 3 to 4 detailed pearls. So each needs to focus on a specific use of language and or structure related to the settings used in the poem and linked to the poem's context. You should use tracking phrases and cover these in chronological order. Now, I'm just going to go through on the next slide an example of that about Ozymandias, which is the poem you did last week. So, the overview. Shelley's poem Ozymandias uses the setting of a barren desert to symbolise the limitations of human influence. Here, Shelley can be seen as warning those in his own society, such as his father, against the abuse of their power. So, great overview with a link to Shelley and the context of his life and the message that he was trying to deliver with Ozymandias. And our first pearl focused on language. To begin, tracking phrase, Shelley has chosen to set his poem in an antique land, quote, which may seem vague but tells the reader a lot about the nature of power. The noun phrase implies an idea of fragility, as if the power that Ozymandias once had has long since faded. As antiques are also valuable, Shelley may be also suggesting that we should learn from what happened to this pharaoh's empire. This is a lesson that Shelley would have wanted the British Empire to learn, as he believes that many of its leaders to both be arrogant and abusive in their use of power. You could also mention that you knew the antique land referred to the land of Egypt, which is where Ozymandias or Ramesses II ruled. Okay, so hopefully you can see there how it's got the elements of pearl, it's got the tracking phrase, it's got the evidence, it's got the idea about the power being fragile, the analysis of the word antiques, and then that link to Shelley and to context at the end there. You might want to pause now and just read back over that yourself and try and think about which bits you could learn and take from. You also might want to pause and go back to the poem and decide which kind of 3 or 4 bits from the beginning, middle, and end you would like to refer to in your answer. Okay, then on slide 4, you're going to write a response to the task. So you need to write an overview, like there was on the slide before, and then you need to write 2 pearl paragraphs, ideally, please. You could try to write one pearl on language and 1 pearl on structure if you would like to. But if you want to write them both on language, that's fine. The key thing that people forget to do in this assessment is they forget to include context. So please make sure you include the contextual information that links to your quotation. And then lastly, after you've done your writing, you can do a bit of self-reflection on what you found difficult and what you found easy in this lesson. Okay, guys, well done. I'm going to do a separate video for lesson 3 and to explain what your assessment will be this term.